All right, it is 11:30, and I'd like to say welcome to our session where we're going to have two program officers from NHGRI, which is the National Human Genome Research Institute, talk about some funding opportunities from NHGRI. Before we get started, I want to thank the speakers for agreeing to present. And I also just want to give some context. This is one of several sessions that we've had in which we're giving NHGRI participants an opportunity to connect with funding opportunities and with program officers and program directors. And I think this is a really, really neat opportunity at a conference like this with so many different levels of people in their careers and so many different research interests. And so I'm very, very pleased to be able to welcome to NHGRI two NHGRI representatives, Heather Colley, who's Program Director at the Division of Genomic Medicine, and Lisa Chadwick, who's Program Director in Genome Sciences. I think I got that right, guys. And so in a minute, I'm gonna, they'll take over and give us their presentation. I'd like everybody to please make sure you mute your audio and your video for this session. If you have questions as we go on, please enter them in the chat, or if you prefer and you want to raise your hand and deliver them verbally, that is fine too. And so without further ado, Lisa and Heather, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm very excited to hear your presentation.
Thank you so much, Brett. Lisa and I would like to thank Brett and the organizers for the invitation to the meeting. Good morning to everybody. I'm Heather Colley, and I'm going to start the first half of the presentation, and then my colleague Lisa is going to do the second half. So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit is, who are we? We're the National Human Genome Research Institute. We are one of 27 institutes and centers at the NIH. And our overall mission is to really improve the health of humans through advances in genomic medicine. And how do we want to accomplish this is through supporting research and funding opportunities to accelerate the scientific and medical breakthroughs, to really be able to understand the basic scientific underpinnings of genomics and being able to use that information to apply this to improving human health. So I wanted to highlight a couple information resources. We have a really wonderful landing page at NHGRI, which is genome.gov. I have that information at the end of the presentation. But a couple things I wanted to highlight for this group is we have a really nice set of web pages focused for people who are interested in exploring the different career possibilities in genomics. We also have a new webpage on talking about promoting diversity in the genomic workforce, which is something I'm going to talk about in today's presentation, and then all kinds of funding opportunities for research training. We're going to touch upon a couple of them in this presentation. Obviously, I did not have time to include all of them, but I encourage people to take a look at this website. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to one of us. So again, I wanted to talk a little bit about the diversity and training funding opportunities that I thought might be of interest to this group. So the first one I wanted to talk about is this is a new mechanism for NHGRI. This is called the F99K00. This might sound familiar to the K99R0s that I think most people are familiar with. The F99 is actually taking a step backwards. This is actually looking to support individuals who are currently working on their dissertation by providing support for them in that F99 case, and then helping them move into that K00 case as they're moving into their postdoctoral research. My colleague Tina Gatlin is the contact for this, and we are currently soliciting applications for this. I wanted to jump into a little bit about the K99. So there is the traditional K99 at NIH, and then there is also something new. This was released in 2019. This is called the Mosaic. Similar model to the K99 that we're familiar with. The difference is this program, the Mosaic, is looking on and providing research support to individuals from diverse backgrounds. And diverse backgrounds is pretty inclusive at the NIH. The NIH actually has published a statement on what they are defining diversity. So this can include ethnic, racial backgrounds. This can include people from socioeconomic status. This can include individuals with physical or intellectual disabilities as well. So I encourage everybody to take a look at this. And if you have any questions about eligibility, please feel free to reach out to me. I am the contact for this. But again, similar model where we provide support in that K stage to work on your postdoc, and then the R00 is to help individuals transition into a successful independent research career. One of the newer programs that we have here at NHGRI is called the K-18. This is a short-term mentored research career enhancement award, again, to promote diversity in biomedical research. Applicants can apply for support from as little as 3 months up to 24 months. And this is really to help individuals expand their genomic competencies, or for individuals who really want to learn new genomic techniques, skills, or knowledge. And we do provide funding for salary support while they're working full-time to be able to do this type of work. We also have research supplements, and most institutes across the NIH actually provide this opportunity. There are 2 that are available. One is to promote diversity, to bring people into health-related research opportunities. And then there's another one that's very popular, is to help individuals who may have been outside of the research career for a couple years, either to family or individual kind of constraints where they had to take a step out of that and now want to come back into a research career. We actually provide supplement opportunities for individuals to work on existing NIH grants by providing a separate line of funding for these individuals to get them back into the loop. Again, we're anywhere from the high school level up to faculty level, and Tina Gatlin, my colleague, again, is the research contact for this. We also have an R21 program. So this is for our research grants, and these are small grants for new investigators to the NIH to really promote diversity. So again, we're looking to seek that. We're hoping to facilitate the transition of individuals to a research independent career with a smaller R21 research grant. So as you can see here for the eligibility, this is really for people who have not had their first big R01 yet. This is for people who are looking to dip their toe into the pool and get a little bit more acclimated with the process. And it's also different review criteria for the R21. But this is not eligible for postdocs. This is, again, for people who are more on the independent side. And our colleague, Mike Pazin, is the contact for that. He'd be happy to speak to anybody about this opportunity. And then this was just released actually this week. We're calling this the GREAT program, which stands for Genome Research Experiences to Attract Talented Undergraduates into the Genomics Field to Enhance Diversity. We spend a lot of time on developing acronyms here at the NIH. This is actually an RFA where we're looking to, this is kind of a new model that we're exploring here at NHGRI, where we really want to focus on getting undergraduates interested into exploring a career in genomics. And we're specifically focusing on undergraduates that are enrolled at MSIs or minority serving institutions, or for this particular group, IDEA eligible institutions. We're trying to develop these partnerships where they can really start to put together graduate level training in specific areas of interest to NHGRI. And those areas would be genomic medicine, genome science, and ELSI, which is the ethical, legal, and social implications of genomics research. So this was just published this week. We're allowing up to $350,000 per year for the program, and Tina Gatlin, again, is the contact for this. I also wanted to bring attention to this group. Some of you may know about, it used to be called the SCORE program. Now it's called the SHORE program. NHGRI is now participating in this. And these are basically awards for higher education institutions that have received limited dollars of NIH.
Heather, you muted yourself. Or you are muted. Oh. You were briefly unmuted, and now you're muted again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I kept getting a message saying that the host kept muting me and then unmuting me. So let me know if that happens again. So I'll just start over briefly again. This used to be the SCORE program. It's now known as the SHORE program. And what this is that this is looking to support higher education institutions that have historically received limited NIH research financial support, but also are serving students from groups that are underrepresented in biomedical research to be able to develop these type of programs. So NHGRI is a participant in this, and our colleague Irina is the contact for this if you're interested. Couple other new programs that I'm going to highlight briefly. One is called the K25. It's a Mentor Quantitative Research Award. So this is looking to provide support and basically protected research time with supervised study and research to be able to, we're targeting professionals that have a quantitative background in statistics, math, computer science, chemistry, physics. Then these are usually for people with master's or doctoral degrees that are really looking to beef up their genomics knowledge. And that's why we're focusing more on the quantitative sciences for this. So this is a new opportunity. If you look this up in NIH Reporter, you will not see any applications funded to this point. It just opened up a few weeks ago. So Sergio Sen is our colleague who is managing this program. He's a really fantastic guy. I encourage anybody to reach out to him to talk to him about this. We're really excited about this new program. And Sergio is also leading another effort. Again, we're really talking about quantitative and data scientists. And this one is geared a little bit differently, where this is only focusing on master's degree students. So we're catching people coming out of the undergraduate, but not quite deciding to go on to complete their PhD. And this is for individuals who really want to have a research experience in data science before people decide to move into either the private sector or continue in the public sector. So again, we're trying to capture people, as you can see, at different levels along the pipeline. We also have mentored research experiences for genetic counselors. This is actually an R25 program. We're looking for individuals who hold a master's degree in genetic counseling. And again, this is another opportunity to expose genetic counselors to maybe pursuing a career actually in research, if they're looking something different from patient or clinical care. Again, we're not supporting doctoral students. This is only for genetic counselors that hold a master's degree. And we offer flexibility. The research experience can be as little as 12 months and as more as 24 months, and they have to commit a 50% minimum effort to this program. And Ebony Madden herself is a genetic counselor, and she is our colleague and would be happy to discuss opportunities with you. And I want to talk about one of my favorite programs here at the NIH, which is the NIH Loan Repayment Program. I don't think a lot of people know about this, and I am the contact for this. So this is a congressionally mandated program. Again, we're looking to recruit and retain qualified professionals to actually stay in biomedical research careers. This is for individuals who are working at nonprofit organizations. The application cycle for this year opens on September 1 and closes on November 18th, so it's a tight window. You do need to have an ERA Commons ID to apply. You apply through the LRP website, which is a fantastic resource. But what we're looking to do is we will pay potentially up to $50,000 per year of your qualified educational debt. So we have an LRP office that works in partnership with me that will go through your loan paperwork. Myself as a program officer will not look at that. But if you're working in biomedical research and have, all NIH institutes participate in this, but if you are doing things that relate to our mission here at NHGRI, we would love to be able to have you apply and consider supporting your application. We do have a 50% success rate. And for instance, this past year, it was about over 1,600 applications were supported across the NIH. So if you have lots of student loan debt and are looking at a way to get rid of it while you're working, please feel free to reach out to me. A couple things I also wanted to highlight. Every institute, including NHGRI, has council meetings. These are 3 times a year, and most of them, if not all, are available for content online. So you can go to our webpage, genome.gov, and you can actually watch what happens during the council meetings during what we call the open sessions, where we are sharing information with the general public. We do have 2 funding opportunities that have not been published yet, but very soon will be coming out if you want to hear a little bit of background on these. One is a new R01 program for supporting talented early career researchers in genomics. And another program that I will be leading, an R25, we're looking to support medical schools to develop curriculum development in genomics for medical students. So just trying to give you an idea of what's coming down the road. And at this point, I am going to turn things over to my colleague, Lisa.
Okay, thanks a lot, Heather. So the early career research is one that Heather mentioned before. I'm the contact for that. So I hope that I will, once that gets published, will be talking to many of you. Okay, so I'm also the R15 contact for NHGRI. A lot of you are probably already familiar with the R15, but we would really like to see more applications come into NHGRI through this program. So I just wanted to mention it. We participate both in the area and the REAP, which is the area is geared towards institutions that typically have more undergraduates that are working in the lab. And the REAP is for institutions that are health professional or graduate schools. The key eligibility criteria for this is the amount of money that your school gets from the NIH. So to be eligible, you need to have received a total of less than $6 million per year of support in 4 of the last 7 fiscal years. And these are smaller 3-year awards, but can be really great for people at these kinds of institutions, and have the goal of encouraging and providing research experiences for students that wouldn't otherwise have them. I'm also the coordinator for our early career researcher activities, so I wanted to highlight a couple of things. So first, NHGRI, like all institutes, takes applications from early stage investigators through the parent announcement. The parent R01 has dates 3 times a year. Some of the benefits of being an ESI and applying through the parent are that your application is identified to reviewers and they're generally clustered in review. So reviewers know when they see your application that you're new in your career. You may not have the level of preliminary data that someone who's had an R01 funded for a long time would have. So they're making sort of those concessions as they are reviewing. They also cluster those, so they didn't just review like the leader in your field's R01 application right before yours and get to yours and be like, oh, why is this not, does not have as much preliminary data. So those 2 things can be really helpful for you. Some institutes actually have a separate pay line for ESIs. We don't at NHGRI. We have other ways of ensuring that we fund ESIs at a level that's comparable to that of established investigators. But we would love to get applications in this way. I will encourage you to contact a program officer to talk about your application before you put it together. I'm going to talk about a couple of ways that you can find program officers to talk to a little bit later in the talk. You can go to the next. And then this is another early career researcher R01 that I wanted to mention. You have to be an ESI for this. And I didn't mention this, you may know this. But ESIs are people who have not gotten any significant funding from the NIH prior to that, and they finished their terminal degree within the last 10 years. So in order to apply to this FOA, you need to have ESI status. Some unique features of this are that no preliminary data is allowed, not just not expected, but not allowed. If you put anything in there that can be construed as preliminary data, they'll actually withdraw your application. So you have to be really careful about that. The other thing about this one is that the intention is to have the research be a substantial change in direction from what you've been doing previously. And if it turns out to be a multi-PI application, it has to be a substantial change for all of the PIs on the application. I think almost all of the NIH institutes participate in this FOA. I'm the contact for NHGRI, but if your work is relevant to another NIH institute, I would encourage you to reach out to the program contact for that institute to talk about this first. There are some pros and cons to applying for this versus just applying through the parent, and we can help talk you through that and make the best decision for your application. So you can go to the next one. Okay, so in our last couple of slides, we wanted to talk about some sorts of tips and tricks for navigating the NIH process. We give talks like this all the time, so this is just a very condensed version. But I know a lot of you may not have applied for grants at the NIH before, or you may have limited experience applying, and it can be a very complicated process. There's a lot of things to figure out and questions that you might have. And so I'm going to try to address a couple of them here. So you can go to the next slide. So first, I wanted to introduce you to the kinds of people that you might interact with at the NIH. They're all important and they all have very different roles. So first is the program officer. Heather and I are both program officers. We're the people that you'll probably talk to the most. We're responsible for the scientific aspects of grants. We're the ones who develop research programs, so we write the RFAs and funding announcements that you apply to. We give guidance and assistance to people as they're putting their applications together. And then after your application is funded, we're the ones who review your progress reports, make sure things are going the way that we want them to be going. Sometimes we'll do site visits, et cetera. So you'll probably talk to program officers a lot through your career. And I hope that that will be one of the big things that you get from this talk, is that we're here to help you, and don't be afraid to talk to us. The other person that you'll interact with sometimes is a scientific review officer. Those are the people who are responsible for getting your application reviewed in a fair and unbiased manner. They put together the review panels that review the applications, and then they're also the ones that will provide a summary of the review afterwards, which is called the summary statement. And if you are going to get funded, you will also interact with grants management specialists. Those are the people who understand all of the policy, business, and budgetary aspects of your grant. I'm glad that we have those people, because I don't understand those parts. But if you have questions about policy or budgetary issues, these are the people that you would talk to. And they're the people who actually get those notice of awards out to you. You can go to the next slide. So we are here to help you. That is literally our job. So don't be afraid to contact us. If you're thinking about putting a grant application together, it's really helpful to get in touch with a program officer before you submit it. We can answer all kinds of questions for you. For example, I can help you figure out whether the science you're proposing in your application is the right fit for my institute, or maybe it's a better fit for another institute. I can also help you determine whether this is a good fit for the funding announcement that you have in mind, or whether there's maybe something that's more appropriate for your project. I can help you figure out who would be likely to review your application. And that's really important to know as you're putting your application together, because you kind of want to know who your audience is. I have heard so many grant reviews in my time, so I can help figure out what are the kinds of things that I see in your specific aims that I know that this review panel likes, or maybe big pitfalls that I can see, or things that I know that this study section often asks about. And like I said, we'll review specific aims pages, and if I see any real red flags in there, I'll talk to you about those too. So you can go to the next slide. Now, it's one thing to tell you to talk to your program officer, but how do you figure out who the right program officer is? There's a couple of different ways. So if you're applying to a specific funding announcement, there is a section in that announcement that lists agency contacts, and you should go to that and see who the scientific contact is. So that would be the person that you talk to for a specific funding announcement. But if you're just applying through the parent, you have a grant that you want to submit and you don't know who to talk to, there are a few ways that you can do it. One thing that can be really helpful is looking on the NIH Reporter. If you're not familiar with that, that is a database of all of the grants that have been funded at the NIH. It can give you all kinds of information, like what are the institutes that fund research like what you're proposing? Who are the program officers that are assigned to those grants? And what other researchers are funded to do research like this? These are all useful things to know, but we're all assigned program areas based on sort of the science that you're proposing. And so if you see a certain program officer's name come up a lot, that's probably a good place for you to start in terms of contacting someone. You can go to the next slide. So I also wanted to mention a couple of important things to think about when you're writing applications. It's really helpful, I think, to know sort of what a review panel is like, what they're looking for, and how to make it as easy as possible for them to look at your application and think, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and I want to give it a great score. It's really important to remember that unless you're planning to fund your own research, which you're probably not, you're writing your application for them, not for you. So you need to make sure that it is attractive to these reviewers. Reviewers are accomplished in their field. They're very dedicated to peer review. They try their best to be fair in how they review applications, but it's really important to know that they're also, like you, overcommitted. They're probably reviewing your application at 10 o'clock at night. Their nature is to be overly critical of what you propose and skeptical. And so you need to convince them. And another thing I wanted to mention is they may only have a general understanding of what you're proposing. So you need to make sure that you're talking about your research and why it's important in a way that's accessible to everybody, even if they're not exactly a specialist in your field. You can go to the next slide. The reviewers will be giving you scores on these 5 different review criteria: significance, investigator, innovation, approach, and environment. And then they sort of take that all in their head and come up with their overall impact score at the end. So knowing that these are the criteria that they're going to be scoring you on, you want to make sure that you give this information to them very clearly in your application. You know, tell them why it's innovative. Describe your approach really clearly, so that they can easily discern that when they're reading your application at 10 o'clock at night. You can go to the next slide. And then after the review, you'll get your summary statement. This will have the contact information for the program officer that has been assigned for your application. This is a great time to talk to them because we can help you go through the summary statement, figure out what are the most important points for you to address in your resubmitted application. They're not always the same as you might think when you go through the summary statement. It will also have information about who the reviewers were, what the score and percentile that you received were, if there were any concerns about your human or animal subjects concerns. If the application was discussed, you'll get a summary of that discussion, but even if it wasn't discussed, you'll get the written critiques from all of the assigned reviewers, along with the individual scores for those 5 review criteria that I mentioned. You can go to the next slide. That might be the last slide. Yeah, that was the last one. So we do have a couple of minutes that Heather and I are happy to take any questions that you might have. You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself or raise your hand, or whatever works for you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa and Heather. That was fantastic. So one of the questions that I have is more general for our audience. So say I'm a researcher and I want to contact and have a discussion with a program officer. How should I prepare myself for that meeting? Should I put together like a half pager that describes what I'm thinking in it so that you guys can look at that in advance of the meeting? How should I prepare myself?
Okay, so here's what you should do. Number 1, you should put together a draft of your AIMS page. It doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be the final draft, but put that together, send it to us in an email and say, I wanted to schedule a call with you. Here's my AIMS page. Here's what I'm thinking about applying for. Do you have time to talk to me? Then I'll send you a Zoom link. We'll have a call and we'll talk about it. Don't call me on the phone. I don't think many of us actually answer our phones because it's not very helpful for me to talk to you when you cold call me. I have not had a chance to look at your application. I'm not prepared at all. So setting it up ahead of time is the key. And then the other thing I always tell people is if you email a program officer and they don't reply to you, don't think, oh, they don't want to talk to me. They're not interested. The reality is that we get so much email every day. We all do, right? And you know how it is. When the email goes down your inbox, you don't see it, and then you forget all about it. So it is never that we don't want to talk to you. It's just that we didn't reply to your email and it got lost. Don't hesitate to email again and say, I just wanted to check in again. Can we schedule a time for a call?
Fantastic. I mean, this bears on deciding where is appropriate to apply for research funding. And I think one of the other questions, particularly for early stage investigators or for trainees, is thinking about, well, what institute am I at? I know my research has some impact on health. How do I determine, do I go to NIGMS? Do I go to NHGRI or any of the others? And so is there any guidance that you can offer in terms of NHGRI applications that would guide people to you? Does it have to do with, genomics is pretty broad, right. Human genome research. How do you know that it fits there? How do you know to come talk to you? Do you have any general guidance that you can offer about NHGRI in that regard?
Heather, do you want to take a question, or do you want me? I'll just automatically blow through them all.
I'll start off quickly. So, I think the first thing is I would encourage everybody to use the NIH reporter. I think if you're really stuck on where to even start, if you draft your specific aims and you got like that abstract, you can put it into the NIH reporter, and that can kind of give you a really preliminary search result on what institutes, because genomics is everywhere at the NIH. We're not the only institute that does genomics research, just to let everybody know that. So almost all of the disease-oriented institutes do genomics research. I think the difference in the nuances is that NIGMS is really interested on the basic mechanistic kind of biological underpinnings. And on the surface, it looks like there's not a lot of difference between us, but there is, and the way we kind of parse things out. On our end here at NHGRI is we're really interested in trying to understand some of that basic biology, and also trying to do some, at least from the genomic medicine side, is variant interpretation. How can this be applied to human health? For instance, areas of pharmacogenomics, polygenic risk scores. Those are the type of things that we're interested in, but also other institutes are doing that type of work. So for instance, NHLBI, the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, they're going to be more disease oriented, where here at NHGRI, we are more disease agnostic. We're looking for technology development and algorithm and statistical development that can maybe use a disease as an example, say, high cholesterol, and maybe developing those algorithms that can be shared and can be used broadly across a variety of diseases and phenotypes. So we understand in genomic medicine, you have to have that disease or phenotype, but we're looking things on a broader scale. If you're really trying to focus on one specific disease or phenotype, then that's usually when we recommend that you go to that institute that represents that. Lisa, did you?
Just to say even more about that, we typically look for things that are looking on a genome-wide level, so not an investigation of a limited number of genes or some sort of specific genomic feature, and broad applicability. So not just something that's going to help you understand the basis of one disease or a limited set of diseases, but that you could use to apply a whole bunch of things. For most grants like the R01, most institutes participate. So you would just submit your application and it would get assigned to an institute based on what you propose. But for some announcements like the R21, for example, not all institutes participate. So you do want to make sure that you know which institute is going to take that application and that they participate before you submit your application.
And also don't be afraid to, every institute has a web page. So, and on all those web pages usually have it front and center, what their mission and what their goals are, and what the scope is of the research that they're planning to support as well. So that's another place to start as well.
All right, Lisa and Heather, thank you so much for your great talk and your willingness to answer questions and your accessibility. We're at the end of our time, and I want to make sure all of our listeners have time to, get a coffee or a lunch or something before they go to the next keynote, which is about CRISPR. So I'm going to go ahead and end the session and just say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for inviting us.